Yeah, I joke a lot that like I love attention and I love the spotlight and I love applause. And like it's true because that's why I've chosen the career that I've chosen. But the real reason that why I love to talk about myself is because I've had such a vast variety of experiences that I love connecting with other people and finding out how like my life experience has intertwined with theirs. And, when I love being able to meet someone who's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm an accountant." And I'm like, "I don't know what we're gonna have in common, but we're gonna figure it out," you know?
Well, and that's the thing is like every single person in this world has an incredible story to tell, but they just may not know how to tell that story. And so, if you do know how to tell your own story, then you should, because that is a way of connecting with people. Okay, welcome everyone to the Job Box, the career fair in podcast form, where we unpack everyday jobs with the everyday people who work them. I'm Casey, and today I have a good friend of mine, McKenna Wright. McKenna was raised in Claremont, Florida, and now resides in Utah. Her passions include travel, spending time with loved ones, and performing, whether that be musical theater, film acting, modeling, all of the above, and more. Some fun facts about McKenna is she speaks fluent Mandarin Chinese, has her bachelor's degree in sociology, and has been a Disney princess. She's lived all over the world. McKenna feels most fulfilled when she's learning more about the world and the people around her. So here we are, McKenna.
Hey, here we are.
So we met in Taiwan years ago, probably in 2013-ish?
2014. Yeah.
2014. Yeah. And we've crossed paths multiple times. We've even worked on a few projects on set in the recent past. So I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Well, I want to dig into your journey. The first part of the podcast I call "Who Are You and What Do You Do?" So I already kind of introduced you, but tell us a little bit more. Tell me about your Mandarin Chinese background. That's something you and I share. But yeah,
Yeah. So we met when we were in Taiwan, and that's where I first had contact with the Chinese language and really needing to learn it to get by. And it was, really difficult, but very fulfilling. And it kind of opened up in me this like belief in myself that I hadn't experienced before to do something really, really difficult. And when I came home, I didn't want to lose the skill. And so I made it part of my education at BYU, got my minor in Chinese. And then life has just taken me back to China over and over and over. And I've, since lived there for a few years. And I'm really passionate about it. And I'm really passionate about connecting with the Chinese people. And right before I left from living in China, I took the HSK level 5 exam and I passed it. And that's like, there's only 6 levels. And so I passed number 5.
I didn't know that. That's really cool. And I've been seeing your journey on social media, and we've talked a few times over the years. Just hearing about your experience in China and with the Chinese people, it's been really fun to see that you've been able to use that language skill throughout your career and wherever you've been. So I want to come back to that. You said you were a Disney princess, and I know that kind of has something to do with the language stuff. But yeah, tell me how that even happened.
Yeah. So Claremont, Florida, where I was raised, is like 20 minutes from Orlando. And for the first like 14 years of my life, my dad was working at Disney World. And so I kind of had that magic very close at hand in my life. And I just always knew, every little girl growing up is like, I want to be a Disney princess. But it actually felt attainable to me because I was living there. But then we moved to the other side of the country. And I think it was when I went and toured to China with young ambassadors and we went to Shanghai Disney that desire had kind of been reawakened in me. And I was like, you know what? Like, this is something I want to pursue. Disney auditions are just open call, and there's a website that tells you when all of their auditions are, and they're on Instagram and all of that. So I just, after I graduated and after auditions were in person again, post-COVID, I just went to an in-person audition, and I am very lucky that I booked my first job with Disney for my first audition. And then I used that job kind of as a springboard into working at Shanghai Disney. So yeah, I was a character performing on the Disney cruise ship, on the Disney Fantasy.
Okay. So they just send out a casting call, and you don't really know what you're auditioning for, but you just went and did it and got
I'd say
booked.
that normally the castings are pretty specific. I just personally had no idea, like, what there's, like, specific lingo as there is in any kind of, industry, and so I didn't really know what I was walking into, but, yeah.
That's awesome. So was that like your first experience with like being cast for anything for things outside of like theater or
Kind of. I mean, as a graduated, like, professional, because I'd done lots of auditions to get on the performing companies that I was on at BYU, auditions for lots of things in my life, because I've done film since I was young, so doing auditions all through that, but it was kind of like one of my first, like, in-person live auditions.
that's awesome. Okay, so then when you were on the cruise ship, what's like what was that like living on a cruise ship and performing for audiences like what every night?
I there are so many layers to this. There are so many layers to this. Um, One, it was my first professional job, and so I was very excited about it. Two, I was working for Disney, so I was very excited about it. I was living on a cruise ship, which, like, I like to consider myself a collector of eclectic experiences, and so, like, that was something I didn't know anybody who had done was live on a cruise ship. And I got to, travel because the cruise would stop at different locations. And I was performing, right? But the lifestyle is not for everyone. And so, like, I loved my job when I was doing the thing I was hired to do, whether that was dancing on stage or interacting with guests, or I had a couple of shows that I performed like monologues in. When I was doing the actual work, like, I loved it, and it was so fulfilling and so magical and so meaningful to me. But kind of every other aspect was really, really difficult because I didn't really know, like, I didn't have accurate or adequate expectations. I think that would have done a lot for me. So, like, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that I would do another contract as wild as my first one was, because now I have proper expectations, if that makes sense. But,
Is there anything that you would say to someone who's considering doing it that they maybe should expect?
well, Disney Cruise Line is unique in the fact that why do people come on a Disney cruise as opposed to other cruises for the Disney characters, you know? And of course, because it's family oriented, but as a character, you will be expected to be available 24/7, I guess. And just being in very close proximity to the same people for an extended amount of time, if you're able to do that, then good for you. My experience between Disney Cruise Line versus Disney Shanghai, like, the level of the things you look for and value in a job, say, like, fulfillment versus maybe, how much it pays, obviously, versus, like, environment, those things were very opposite, I feel like, on my 2 Disney experiences. So,
Gotcha. Yeah, you have to have a certain personality for this kind of thing. Especially, I didn't even think about being around, the same people for like a whole week or however long the cruise is.
you're contracted with those people for 9 months, you know what I mean?
Was it 9 months? I didn't realize it was that long.
Sometimes I mean, there's lots of Disney cruise ships at this point, and they're experimenting with different things. It's whole, it's a whole industry, and, I know a lot about it because I'm in it, but
Right.
this ecosystem, but, yeah, my contract was 9 months, and that's pretty typical.
So hearing you talk about your Disney cruise experience and like acting in general, performing, I was thinking about your majoring in sociology. So I mean, I didn't know a lot about sociology, but I'm so curious about it. Tell me a little bit about sociology.
So at BYU, there were, like, kind of 3 buckets you could kind of choose from to put your emphasis into, and the one I chose was criminology. And so I was taking the sociology classes, and the ones that were, like, more specialized were, like, I took juvenile delinquency, I took, race and ethnicity, I took, let's see, women in crime. People understand what, like, psychology is, the way that, like, your singular brain in every person kind of functions physiologically, scientifically. But sociology is kind of how that like individual behavior manifests itself in groups and then shows the patterns throughout different things like age, gender, race. It's very relevant in like, for politics, but it's not the actual policy making, it's the research and the patterns behind how things function and affect society.
What made you want to study that?
Well, I feel like this is something we don't really talk about often is because when from a young age, people ask you, at least at our age, I don't know what they're asking the kids these days, but at our age, it was always, what do you want to be when you grow up? As if that was a solitary decision you had to make and start pursuing at a young age when you're like, I don't even know what I want to have for breakfast. Like, how am I expected to know
Mhm.
what my solidified interests are going to be for the rest of my life? My parents never made me feel like I had to choose. And so I just was open to exploring all of my interests. And what that looked like was I did like a CSI camp when I was really young. And it was just like teaching you how to, I don't know, like look for clues or observe things. We even did like a fingerprint analysis training. I don't even know. But I'm like, I played a lot of like spy games on the PC when I was younger. And that was just something I've always been really interested in. I'm an older sister and I'm a woman, and I think I'm very intuitive, and I'm very observant, and so I just think that that has always kind of piqued my interest. The TV shows, the books I've always read, like, the media I've always consumed has been oriented towards people, patterns, and true crime, and not in, like, the stereotypical way that, like, all white women love true crime. Like, that's something I'm told a lot, and I'm like, "No, my degree is, like, literally in this." But it's just very fascinating to me. Like, deviant human behavior is very interesting to me, and the patterns that form in human behavior is very interesting to me. So yeah, it just made so much sense to me to study that, and so I figured that I could make an impact by learning the people side of it because I feel like that's what I'm good at.
Yeah, that's really cool, and has that come into play throughout your career then? Because I know that there's a lot of people who go to school and then don't do anything with their degree and don't use it in the slightest.
Yeah, so I mean, to be honest, COVID kind of threw a wrench in that. I was doing an internship that I thought was going to kind of lead me into a career, and it was, the evaluation and assessment of the efficacy of nonprofit organizations, and so I was supposed to do, like, some field work, and I was supposed to see and, like, feel out, "Is this the kinda thing I wanna do with my life?" And I didn't get to go and do the field work because of COVID, but then that kind of felt like a redirection. I still plan on going back to school someday, uh, who knows? I still want to pursue further education and somehow implement my degree into my life simply because it is something that interests me and I still do the research and I listen to the podcast, I consume the media, I read research articles for fun in my spare time because it is still something that interests me. Um which is interesting cuz sometimes, I don't know who watching this will know the stereotype of like musical theater kids or actors or whatever, but when I want to like nerd out about an article I read, sometimes it doesn't quite fit the vibe, you know what I mean? So I appreciate about myself and my life experience that I keep multiple interests alive at the same time. But I'd say the way that it has come in handy in what I've done in my career so far, I think primarily it just has provided me a perspective that's been helpful as I've lived in different countries for my career, to understand the patterns I'm seeing, to understand the behaviors I'm seeing, to know how to properly inform someone if they say something that maybe isn't correct or is a stereotype. Like I am that person. I'll be like, hey, so like that thing you just said is actually not right, and I am qualified to tell you why you're wrong. Um, yeah, I think that my Chinese has definitely come in handy, that aspect of my education, and it all just
Oh,
kind of
yes.
ties together with my interest and love of people.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you bring up talking about how from a young age you were asked what you wanted to be when you grew up. But then, like, now looking at your career, you've been so many different things. You experienced so many things. You did a lot of things. And I think, actually, I was reading a book once that talked about how all of us are used to asking a kid, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? But a more realistic question to ask them is, what do you want to do? Because you can do so many things in your life. You can skydive, you can work in accounting, you can you can be an actor, you can do so many more things than you can be.
Yeah.
Because I think society kind of puts it into like just a box of like, oh, this is what you are, this is who you are. But it's so much more interesting when you can talk about what you've done and what you
Yeah.
plan to do.
Yeah. That reminds me, I dated a guy once who told me that it was, I don't know what the exact word he used was, but he basically was like, "It's a shame that you will never be excellent at any one thing, and that's because you choose to do so many things." And I was like, "I suppose you're right. Like, I'll never be an actual expert in anything because the time we have to do things is finite, and you can only do so many things with your hours in a day, and I choose to do so many. But I would rather do lots of things and enjoy them than feel compelled to just, I don't know, put all my eggs in one basket, you know?"
Yeah. Well, and I think too, people who, at least in my experience, feel inclined to like get to know and that I resonate with the most are the ones who are the most well-rounded, who are experiencing lots of things, even though like, maybe there's like one thing that they just like really excel at, or a couple of things that they really excel at. The ones who are exploring a lot of different topics, who are looking for new things to experience. Like I think that those kinds of experiences, and especially in a creative field like yours, where you're reading articles and you want to like talk about it with your friends, like that's just grounds for more storytelling, and that's what creativity is all about, is being able to tell stories in a way that resonates with somebody, um and that's like unique and different than what you've seen before, and those sources of inspiration come from all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess in all of the storytelling that I do in my work, my experience with people from all over the world and my knowledge of what other people go through, informs my choices. And I think gives depth to whatever character I'm trying to portray. And I really want to be able to kind of combine them. The most fulfilling experience I've had, a combination at least, was when I was the MC for the show that BYU took on tour to China, and I got to, like, introduce the show in Mandarin Chinese, and they would also have me go and, like, interact and schmooze with all the officials beforehand, and that was
Hmm.
really meaningful to me because I was, day to day, I was translating for all of the friends I was on tour with, but then I was also getting to use my, like, performance experience to step out on stage in front of hundreds or thousands of people, but then also speaking Chinese and then also performing in said show, but then using my social skills to interact with many people and not be too like overwhelmed or intimidated by that. So yeah, I've had several opportunities that have kind of linked all of my talent.
And kind of going back to the whole point of the podcast, sometimes it is hard to find a passion or a career path that integrates all of your interests and your hobbies and your skill sets. How would you say you've done that, and how can someone else do that?
It's a really good question because sometimes I fight and I battle with the polarity of and the duality of my passions. I'd say one thing that is useful, I guess, about the specific things that I have interest in is I do a lot of contract work, and so it's like, okay, you're gonna have this contract for 9 months or 6 months or whatever. Right now, I'd say a day in my life is I wake up and I check my email. Do I have any auditions from my agent? If I do, that is what I'm gonna do that day. Or if, like, I had an email yesterday, then maybe I'm filming those auditions today. If I don't have any auditions, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, engaging with other creators' content so that I can like make connections. Because right now it really is about who you know and how people feel towards you as your personality and your brand. So I'm really working on my personal brand right now. If I don't have any auditions to film, then I'll create some content. I will like seek out modeling jobs or just message people. I will like curate. I have like multiple Instagram pages that I'm working on. But then if I start rehearsals for my next show in a month. So then at around like, 5 o'clock, I'll start to get ready, eat dinner, go to rehearsal, and then I'll rehearse for the rest of the evening. Some days are really busy. And it also requires like, you want to go to the gym to stay in shape. You want to take voice lessons and take dance lessons. You want to make sure you're staying up to date on what's relevant in the industry. There's all these things that people like don't really realize go into it. Like watching YouTube clips to update your acting style, saving money so you can take an acting workshop. Your original question was how
Yeah.
do I kind of like integrate all of them, but I'd say that when I'm not actively pouring my energy into my craft, I'm spending time with my friends, and that in and of itself fills me up so much that I'm even more passionate about sharing people's stories, telling people's stories. Like, I don't think there's anything more important than in the world than each other. And it's just such a privilege to me to be able to interact and learn the stories of my friends. And yeah, it just makes me more passionate about storytelling.
That's a really powerful statement that the most important thing in this world is each other because um yeah, like I think a lot of times we kind of get lost in, at least I get lost in, my workload or, the next thing that I need to do. But when I really have a moment to just sit down and like talk with someone and get to know them on a deeper level, that's when I find the most inspiration. That's when I feel like I'm accomplishing my I guess like a purpose.
Yeah,
If anyone
exactly.
can have a single purpose, I don't know. But yeah, like and I think that depending on the career you choose, you can have more opportunities to do that. Or a career that you'd rather not. And and everyone's different. But
Yeah.
if you're someone who's a little more social and you want to tell more stories, um, yeah, it's important to be able to connect with people and get to know them and share vulnerable pieces of yourself.
Yeah, I joke a lot that, like, I love attention and I love the spotlight and I love applause. And, like, it's true because that's why I've chosen the career that I've chosen. But the real reason that why I love to talk about myself is because I've had such a vast variety of experiences that I love connecting with other people and finding out how, like, my life experience has intertwined with theirs. And, when I love being able to meet someone who's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm an accountant." And I'm like, "I don't know what we're gonna have in common, but we're gonna figure it out," you know?
Well, and that's the thing is like every single person in this world has an incredible story to tell, but they just may not know how to tell that story. And so, if you do know how to tell your own story, then you should, because that is a way of connecting with people. I want to get into like the next section of this podcast, which is called the good, the bad, and the break room. And basically what that means is like, what's at odds in your industry? Like what's the best parts about it and the worst parts and everything in between. And then what about the work-life balance? Tell me about that.
I would like to consider myself like a pretty malleable and multidimensional person, because I fit in multiple different types of places. So I'd go from a class called race and ethnicity, and then I would go to a class which was like my advanced Chinese class, and then afterwards maybe I'd have a show or something. I joke that like, oh, I have lots of personalities. I think I just you turn on different parts of yourself. Like I can be very focused, and like some of the most somber people I've ever met were in my Chinese class, you know? I'm not
Hmm.
going to talk about like the new Wicked movie with them. So I feel like I know how to feel comfortable in lots of ranging from like professional business to musical theater kid, you know?
Yeah, kind of like just like a social chameleon.
Yeah. I just mean like we can all hold multiple versions within ourselves and we don't have to feel compelled to be defined by what other people experience us as. My most recent, full-time jobs have been with Disney and in the musical theater community. And I think it's very easy to get caught up in personal drama, work drama as it is anywhere. But also a large component of that is comparing your your talent to others and then comparing your looks to others, especially working for Disney. You don't know how the casting decisions are made. And what I mean is like if they pull from a group of people for a certain show, you're not auditioning for that show. They're just literally pulling people from it and you don't know why. And so I think sometimes that can be infuriating because you never know why they're choosing someone. And for someone like me, I want to know. I want you to tell me exactly what makes me worthy of this experience. And sometimes the unknown as a performer can be really frustrating. Or like when you audition for things and you never hear back, or you get a call back that you felt like went really well and you don't know why you weren't chosen. You literally will never know. It could be like, well, you're too short. And sometimes it is hard to be like, we are not each other's enemies. No one is your enemy. The casting director is certainly not your enemy, but it can feel like that if you sense favoritism or you feel like you are especially qualified for an opportunity that you get passed up for. The thing that makes like, I think the spirit of a performer so unique is the desire and the willingness to tell stories because it's very vulnerable, it's very emotional work. So that is something that is really beautiful about performing in any way, you know, um, telling any sort of story, whether it's modeling or musical theater or, you know, film, film or commercial work. Um, but with that comes kind of like bigger, more expressive personalities per se. And so sometimes that can be a lot or be overwhelming or like for example, I'm used to being the most outgoing friend or the friend who is in the spotlight or does more social media. And so when I'm surrounded sometimes by people who are also that, it can almost feel like it detracts from your own sense of self. The environment of a performer can sometimes be very competitive and very comparison and like drama oriented. I would say that the longer your contract is, the harder it is to not be like that. But when I have, you know, just like a film, like I'm filming a commercial in a day, or we're doing, you know, just like a modeling shoot is like 6 hours. People are just so like wonderful and supportive and kind of, I think because your role has been locked in, if you've already been hired on like a shoot, it doesn't bring that much competition because it's like, yes, I still want to like network and make a good impression, but we're not competing with each other in this very moment. And I think that's always a constant battle within me, and I'm sure many actors would agree with this, is that you just, you know, you want to be secure in your own skills and you want to constantly remind yourself that sometimes it's not personal, much of the time it's not personal, but then still always be networking with the right people, be showing up as your best self.
And with it being so complicated and like comparative, you were talking about how when when you audition for things, you may never know why you got chosen and why you didn't. Have you ever had the opportunity to like talk with someone about like your performance and how to do better?
I remember one time, and this is a lesson like I will never forget. I I auditioned for something, I booked the job, but I had so much imposter syndrome. I had so much fun filming the audition, but then the imposter syndrome just overwhelmed me when I actually got to set, and I didn't perform my best. And so after we had wrapped filming that day, my agent had to reach back out to me and say, "The client was not satisfied with your performance, and we need to have you come in and like do some more voiceover." And that was so humbling for me. Obviously, like my first feeling was like embarrassment and shame. But then I was like, okay, this is a huge lesson on just confidence because they booked me from my audition. They liked me enough to literally hire me for the job. But who got in my way when I got on set? It was me. You know, I got in my head and I didn't trust
Mhm.
my talent. And so I like, what's a good analogy? I like hid my own light. I didn't let my own light shine. You know, I was too self-critical and too in my head to show them the performance that they believed that I could give. So I was very, very, very grateful that they allowed me the opportunity to kind of make up for my mistake. But it just taught me so much about like um being very gracious when you get feedback. That probably is one of the standalone experiences where I've gotten direct feedback on my performance. Because a lot of it, like once you are hired and you show up on set, a lot of the time they trust that you don't need any more direction. Whereas sometimes from my perspective, I'm like, No, I have no idea what you want.
I think this goes across any industry, that sometimes even when you prepare your very best, there's going to be unexpected things that pop up that you weren't prepared for, and you just have to learn how to roll with the punches sometimes. But then there are times where like you are adequate for the role, whatever role you're in, but you don't necessarily feel like you are. Just get too in your head and don't perform well. And I know so many people who, didn't apply for a job because they didn't fit every single qualification. And in my opinion, like when you see those on an application, that's the ideal candidate, yes. But if you're hitting like a bunch of them, why not apply? Why not just go for it? Why not just do it? Because if you don't, you'll never know.
Yeah,
Like
let
you'll
them
never
play.
be able to show them who you are and show them that you work hard and that you are disciplined and that you have most of the qualifications that they're calling for. And so I think, yeah, that's a really important lesson that you highlighted. Just that it's so important to just go out there and just do it, even if you're nervous, even if you feel like you're not 100% qualified, but just try your hardest and do your very best not to get in your head. It's hard to do, but it's really important for, yeah, job satisfaction and your feeling of success.
Another thing I'd say is that, like, some of my most successful and fulfilling auditions are when I didn't over prepare. Um, I didn't overthink it and I just relied on my training. And um, that's been something I've heard a lot in auditions recently is like, rely on your training, rely on your technique, like, don't get in your head about it. Because people who have been, acting, singing, dancing, modeling, it's like very easy to this is like a very specific example, but say I'm learning a dance audition and the teacher does maybe a move in the choreography that I'm not super familiar with, but I'm like, I think I could figure that out. As opposed to getting in my head about it and being like, I've never done that before. It's like, well, my body and my muscles I've been training my whole life. Like, I think I can figure that out and I'm going to try it. So yeah, just like trusting yourself. And I'm very much like I'm in my head. I intellectualize a lot of things. So I'm also working on like following my intuition and telling myself that like, why do you feel imposter syndrome? You've literally been doing this your whole life, you know? So I think that that is
Yeah.
something we can all work on is just believing in ourselves.
Yeah, just trusting that your own past experience is enough and it can carry you through, and when you do that, then you'll perform the best that you're able to. Yeah, I love that. The next part that I wanted to talk about is what I call the bacon,
Okay.
and it's all about the money.
Yeah.
So, yeah, tell me like realistically, because I've heard stories of acting and it being really difficult, especially in like the acting hubs like LA and stuff. But like, tell me about pay and job security as far as the industry goes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still figuring that out too, man. When someone tells me like I'm doing acting full time, I still feel this like jealous pang in my chest because I'm like, what is enough for that person to consider it worth it to not do any other job? You know what I mean? So for me right now, like I have low expenses. So me not taking on like not having like a day job or whatever, not having another source of income isn't make it or break it for me because I have low expenses, you know? So that's why, like, when I tell people, like, I'm acting full time, I don't want people to get it twisted and be like, "Yeah, I'm booking shoots, like, every single week." No. I
Hmm.
just have low expenses. It's something I think about a lot because jobs that have job security, for example, longer, like, overseas international contracts, like, when I was working for Shanghai Disney, I was there for almost 2 years, and like, it's really good job security and you are working a full-time job. It was a full-time job and we got paid, I think there was a lump sum per month, I think is how it worked when I was in China. And then for cruise line, it was like a lump sum per week and we got paid biweekly. Um, so you are and then you can get paid overtime. But that is the definition of job security as a performer is having a longer contract. And it's still not even that secure because you have to re-audition. Like for cruise line, you finish your 9-month contract, you might not be offered a next one. You might have performed and did the very best you could, but you might not be offered a next contract and you won't know until the end of your contract. But like for Shanghai Disney, you have to re-audition every 6 months. So job security, like 6 months is the most that I've experienced, you know?
Yeah.
But
So basically the job as far as acting goes is auditioning. That's the job until you get booked, and then you are acting until the contract ends
yeah,
or until the
so
job
like
is over.
for me, when I got home from China last summer, I was auditioning until I booked something that started in January. So then I was performing from January to May, and now I have June off. I'll start again in July until the end of the year. So like that's a pretty good job security year being booked as an actor in 3 shows in a year. Um, but
And when you're performing and you have a contract, is everyone being paid the same rate, or can people negotiate a higher or lower
so you can't
rate? Like, is there a range?
um it depends what role you are with Disney and with other things. And but where the negotiation really comes into play is if I'm booking something through my agent. So I know I'm like dropping lots of words and it might be confusing for someone to watch this, but right now I have an agent that represents me as a film actor, commercial actor, and a model. The modeling that I do creatively, I do myself. And those are the things that can be negotiated because you have an agent to negotiate them, or I set my own rate. For Disney, for musical theater, I do not have an agent. I'm not represented. And that is basically they just set the rate for you and you're auditioning for the job and you agree that you just agree to that rate when you audition for the job. So this year for me, I say job security, but I'm really only working evenings as an actor in a musical. I do a lot of, model shoots during the day and then go to rehearsal at night. So kind of I'm always juggling all of these different balls where it's like, okay, maybe I have the energy to post a bunch on social media today. And then because of that, someone reaches out to me to hire me for a modeling job. There's a lot to juggle and like not everybody does all of these things, but I do and I enjoy them all equally. Whenever someone's like, well, which one do you want to do the most? I'm like, well, when I'm not doing one, I crave doing the other, you know? So it's like,
Does it ever exhaust you?
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
When I was doing my last musical, I'd be getting home at like 11:30 and I am not built for 8 hours of sleep. I'm built for like 12. And so maybe I won't wake up the next day until noon. And then if I want to film some auditions, make some content, go to the gym, and then relax in the evening, I only have a couple hours of daylight. And some people might be like, what the heck? That's crazy. But,
Yeah.
but maybe the next day, like tonight, I'm planning to go to bed early so I can have an early morning tomorrow. It's not that I'm incapable of it. It's just I'm very aware of my physical limitations and I'm more of a night person. And that works for me in the line of work that I've
Yeah.
chosen.
Well, and that's great that you're aware of that too, because I think the more aware you are, the more you can base what you want to do off of like your realistic expectations for yourself. Like if you can do a 9 to 5, then and then have like a pretty good routine in that way, then great. If you are more of like a night owl, like I naturally am more inclined to stay up late and work into the night, because that's when I feel like I'm the most creative. If you know yourself and you know that there's a job that is built for that kind of mindset or that kind of lifestyle, then go for it, and more power to you. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm not really built for structure. I'm built for like self-imposed structure. So if it's like, I've had days before where
Chaos.
it's like, yeah, exactly. If they're like, oh, you are going to be on set today from, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Like I've had days like that where I'm on set filming a commercial all day and then I'll drive straight to rehearsal and have rehearsal from 6:30 to 10:30. But those are the days that I feel the most fulfilled because I'm like, what do you mean I got to do so much in one day? Or I have a photo shoot in the morning and then rehearsal at night. So it's like
Totally.
those are when I feel the most fulfilled.
Yeah, is when you're able to accomplish so many
But then I
things
might not
in
have
any given
anything for
day.
like 4 days in a row, and I'm basically in
Yeah.
my bed for 4 days. Because people say to me all the time, they're like, "You're doing so much, like, your life looks so crazy." And I'm like, "Well, maybe it will be for, like, 4 days, but then I'll have
Mhm.
a whole week where I'm not doing anything."
Yeah, and
You
to
know?
achieve that same level of like success, at least the feeling of that success, you have to like really go out of your way to do it, like, making that content or whatever
Yeah.
it sounds like. Yeah, and it's crazy how like in the acting industry, how all of it works together, like the auditions, the social media presence, the networking, the finding an agent, which by the way, I want to know how does an actor get an agent? Because I'm on the side where I'm like, I look through all kinds of auditions all the time and I know that they're represented by an agent, but I guess I don't really know how does one become represented?
Yeah, so living in Vegas in high school, I didn't have an agent, and then when I moved out to Utah, it was when I got represented with, TMG, which is who I'm with now, and I was, like, 20 years old, and I just remember us all, like, me and my siblings who also are actors, we went in together and you do what's called a cold read, where they just give you, like, a script and, they'll give you maybe 3 different types of characters they want to see, and then you give them a resume and a headshot, and I mean, obviously, I'm making it very simple, right? But
Yeah, I was like, "Wow, if that's the case, I guess I'm just gonna go right in and, have my kids sign up
yeah,
and."
I'm making it sound very simple, but, if you were like, I'm considering applying for, representation in other states because 'cause I'm currently just represented in Utah. Um, and I think what you first have to do is vet who is a good agent, because if you take anything from this podcast, anybody watching this is a good agent will not require you to pay them before they book you, because a real agent only makes money when you work. So, like,
That's
they're not going to require you to, hey, you pay $300 to take this acting class and then go pay $400 to like have this portrait session taken, and then we can put you on our website so that people can find you. Like, that's not a thing. That's shady. Don't do that.
so it sounds like a good agent will book you if you show promise.
Well, they'll sign you if you have promise, yeah. But
Okay,
you
cool.
also it is kind of a tricky thing sometimes because you do have to have experience. They're not just gonna like, as a child, if you have natural promise, that makes sense. You have to have an agent to start getting work. But, I have had lots of friends be like, "Well, I wanna be an actor, but I don't have any experience." I'm like, "Okay, well, maybe do a couple of other things before you go try to find an agent." Because it also doesn't
Yeah.
behoove you to have an agent with no experience, because then you'll audition for things and then you won't get booked on things. Not always, I'm of course, like, I'm simplifying it, but, yeah, you have to find the reputable agents in the place you're trying to get represented, and then, send the resume, send the headshot. They'll have you film a bunch of things. You have to tell them if you wanna be represented with, like, modeling, voiceover, what kind of acting, are you willing to do this? Do you not do this? A whole bunch of things.
Yeah. Well, and as you've been speaking about, showing an agent that you have experience, I feel like a really great way to gain that experience is one, like it sounds, you've been in a lot of stage productions and and it sounds like you've just networked with a lot of people to either model or act in their passion projects basically. Cuz like I know that, when I was in school, I would hear of a lot of people, like maybe the film program where someone was making their film for the year or ad and the or like I was in the ad program, and so a lot of people in my program were making spec work, and therefore they needed talent in those. They needed people to make their production look great. And so I think, for anyone who's wanting more experience in the acting world, go to your local film program or your local ad program and
Mhm.
and see if they're
Absolutely.
making any productions, any spec work, and see how you can get involved and how you can be in it.
I would also say that the Facebook, like, acting and modeling communities are extremely helpful. That's how I got started modeling in Utah, is just through the Facebook community. And like I said at the very beginning, you have to put aside time to interact with creators on Instagram, because that's how a photographer will discover you and then want to book you on a shoot. Like, I want to stay so relevant that I'm the first person that people think of when they need, I don't know, a petite, blonde, white female actress,
When you say, like, interacting with people on Instagram, are you solely, like, commenting, or are you, like, direct messaging them? Like, how are you interacting with these people?
I mean, my everyone has a different approach. I think I am always most successful when I am authentically myself. So if that is I follow them and then I watch their Instagram stories for a week and reply on Instagram, then you kind of feel like you know each other. Like social media is just such a weird
Yeah.
game these days. But then like you find like everyone's like, "Oh, did you stalk my profile?" It's not even stalking anymore. Like people just it's like your portfolio of your life. Like it's there. So just it's not stalking, it's just normal. Go look at it. So you find something in that person's profile that you relate to, you could talk to them about it, or you can literally just say like, "Hey, I'm a model and I love your work. I have this concept. I'd love to work with you." See if they respond.
Well, yeah, and in my experience too, like, direct messaging people, about their work and how much you enjoy it, or if you wanna collaborate, it's really like, it's so cool to receive a message like that, and so, of course, they're gonna wanna at least respond, and as they converse with you, they get to know you. It is such a weird thing that we can just, like, meet people online like that, but it works.
Yeah, and I think that my secret power, my secret sauce is feeling approachable so that people do feel like they can one of the most fulfilling like parts of me sharing my life on social media is when people reach out to me and ask for advice because I didn't go through the struggles I went through in life to not be able to help someone going through the same thing, or I did Disney Cruise Line without an ounce of knowledge beforehand. I'd love to be able to help someone out with that, so I start everyone starts somewhere, and I there's no need to gatekeep, like I'd rather just help someone.
And that goes back to, like, it's just really important for everyone to share their stories because we're all going through similar experiences, and as we share our, like, vulnerable pieces of ourselves with other people, then they'll connect more with us, and we can find a network of people that want to help us and resonate with our journey. And
Yeah, that I think that would be the last thing I'd wanna touch on is, like, a lot of people will look at me or look at my life, and they'll say, "Well, you travel a lot, you're successful, you have lots of friends." Like, some people treat me like I'm invincible or impenetrable or unaffected by challenges. And so I that's why I love to share about, like, my journey with mental health, and I think that I've had the most success in my relationships and the most fulfilling relationships when you set the boundary or you set the starting point for how much you're willing to share with this person. If I start by sharing something vulnerable with you, maybe not start, but I show you how vulnerable I'm willing to be with you, you feel more welcome to reciprocate. And that is where connection is formed. And so whenever I have someone be like, "Oh, your life is perfect," like blah 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 blah, I'm not afraid to say that's not true. And I'm sorry if I don't like share that part of my life as much. You know, I don't think we need to focus on the things that are hard in our lives all the time. But if it because everyone has that person that they like follow on social media or they know or they work with and they're like, "Ugh, that person just has everything. That person
yeah,
just
and I wish I could live that life.
yeah, and I have been the recipient of comments like that, and I don't perceive myself that way. I do not perceive myself that way, but I think that it's my job, it's my responsibility with that privilege to make sure people know that everyone struggles.
So, looking back at your journey, if you could give some advice to your past self, what would it be?
Well, I have had really bad anxiety on posting on social media for most of my adult life, and obviously social media is not everything. So like I don't want to gear my advice specifically towards social media, but it's like
Yeah. Is
just
it an important part of the industry, though,
it's
for
an
you?
important part of the industry. It makes me feel creative. It helps me connect with people. It's like my digital journal, but it has become a vessel through which a lot of people feel anxiety. And what are people going to think of me, or how am I being perceived by posting this? And I would just tell myself to not care so much, especially when like your primary focus is maybe, oh, I don't want like these 3 people I work with to judge me based on this thing that I just posted. Like you're really going to do that? Like for sure I was in that mindset where it's like I cared so much about certain specific people that I would get in my own way.
Well, and I think the way that you've framed social media in this is that it is a platform for connection. And if you think of it as a platform connection, then that's what you'll be looking for. If you think, I'm going to post and see who I can connect with through this post, or I'm going to comment on this person's post because I really connect with what they're saying, then you're going to find that connection.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you're looking for and if you are in your head and you're thinking, "Oh, well, I'm going to post this and people are going to think this or that," and they aren't going to like what I'm posting, then that's what social media will be for you. It'll be a platform of hurt and hardship. And I think that it's important to frame our own perceptions of things in a positive light so that we can get over those fears.
Yeah, I have had a couple of things go viral, and it's so funny how as soon as something is perceived and watched by many people, the humanness of that person seems to go out the window. Like, people forget that there's literally a person on the other side of that screen. So when I do have lots of comments to respond to, I will do it because people need to be reminded you can't just say anything on the internet. Like, I'm not a celebrity, like, not yet. I'm not famous. I'm not anybody. But when you have a piece of media that goes viral, people automatically think you are impervious to having your feelings hurt, and it's just not true. So me getting delving more into content creation lately has been really eye-opening to realize how literally every creator feels. So yes, I'm going to react or I'm going to interact with this person's reel or their post because I know how it feels on the other side, how anxious you feel posting that, how it might feel if it flops, if you spent a lot of time on it and it doesn't do as well as you wanted it to. It's just been like I love experiencing things so that I can relate to other people.
I think that's a really great summary for what you said earlier in the podcast. And it reminds me of the quote. I think it originated with Walt Whitman. And but I heard it in the movie Life of Chuck. Have you seen that one? Oh, it's with Tom Hiddleston. It's based off of a book by who is it by? Um, yeah, it's based off of a book by Stephen King, and one of the lines that he says in it originated from the Song of Myself by Walt Whitman, and part of the poem says, "I am large, I contain multitudes." And so I just think that as far as career searching goes, every single person has so much to give in so many capacities. And what maybe one talent or skill set that you have might lend itself very well to one career, and another talent might lend itself to many careers, but it all just matters what you do, not who you're going to be. And you can do so many things.
Yeah, I would say not to put yourself in a box, allow yourself to experience everything that you are interested in. And there's always going to be, seasons of life where maybe I'm right now is my like musical theater season of life. Maybe eventually I'll go back to school and it'll be my academic phase of life again. Like, just allow yourself to be fluid and flexible and be multiple things. And I don't know how we've gotten to a place where we let others define who we feel like we are. Because, all the time I'll get someone being like, well, you don't look like you speak Chinese. I know. Okay. Like, uh, like the thing I get the most is like, oh my gosh, you look just like a Disney princess. Like, of course you were a Disney princess. I'm like, okay, sure, but how I look is the least interesting thing about me because I did literally nothing to be born this way. There was I let's talk about the things I've accomplished and all the countries I've gone to and the like service I've done all over the world. I know that I look a certain way and I can't help that. Like,
And I think that's like for me at least, that's kind of where things get hairy with social media is because it is all about like, what you see at face value, but also it is that connection. Like if you make it a platform of connection, it can be that. It's just that we as a society have made it into something that is so superficial, and what you see at face value isn't the most interesting thing about someone. Is there anything else that you feel like you'd give your past self?
hmm. I mean, this is a different topic, but I I've lived my life with OCD, my whole life. And I would give myself the advice to not take everything so seriously. Because when you feel like every single decision carries so much gravity, it's really easy to feel like whatever choice you make is going to be the wrong one. And then you feel self doubt. You lack the confidence to say, like, I'm glad I made that decision and I'm glad I'm spending my time this way. So I think that me particularly, and, any chronic overthinker people out there, not every decision has to have heavy meaning. It can just be because you want to. It can just be because you enjoy something, and giving myself permission to do that has been really powerful and brought more joy. Like, I think life is to be lived for joy and connection. And making decisions to pursue those values is going to ultimately be more important in my mind than pursuing it for clout or money or visibility, in my opinion.
Someone who wants to go into a creative career is going to love to hear that, I think, because it, oh man, like um it does sometimes feel like there is so much weight to every decision, but at least for me, the times where I have just kind of let my guard down a little bit and just have fun, that's the time that I feel like I'm learning the most, and I become so much better than I was, and I learn so much from other people, and so I think that's really, really great advice. Um, so looking forward now, where do you want to go from here?
Scary, and that's where, like, you want to be practical, but you got to have a little sprinkle of delusion as a performer, as an actor, so it's like I had never really, when I was like young, I wrote a song about me living in New York and performing on Broadway. And then I kind of forgot about that until recently. And, I think I'd have a lot of work to do to get there, but it's something that I tentatively feel excited about. I also think that I'm a really good actor. I'm not saying be like an A-list actor, but I could do more film work. I don't know. I'm just excited to see like where these opportunities take me. And because I am such a control freak, and I am very good at manifesting and managing a lot of aspects of my life, when opportunities come my way that I had no way to control the outcome of, those are the things that I trust are meant for me. It's like it's always the
Interesting.
audition that you throw together at like midnight that you're like,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, I did not think that I would book that," but that means that like what's meant for you won't pass you by. And I used to have a really, really hard time believing that, because I was like, "No, like whatever's meant for me is because I worked for it and because I obtained it." And that obviously contains a component of truth, but also like you have to believe that there are reasons why certain things don't work out. I think I'm in the phase of life where I'm trying to control things less. So it's like, yes, I'm still
Mm.
going to, look for opportunities and look for auditions and submit auditions when I get them. But right now, I'm focusing on my personal confidence and my connections with others. And then whatever comes from that, I'm putting my trust in.
Well, I think that's a great note to end on, and I think that everything you've shared here, I hope that people listen and they learn so much.
Me too, because I love attention.
I really appreciate your positivity and coming on to the podcast to share your experience.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you for listening. You can look forward to more episodes every Monday morning on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.